The first idea was that it was sabotage. The Navy didn't quite know whether to admit that there could be sabotage or that the defences were inadequate.
Yes, they were just boys. It was the Royal Orkney's men mostly were just young fellas, training ship. Oil come ashore on the Florida beaches there. Stuff like there is that thing. I'm sure there must be some out on the beaches there yet there's nothing shifted. And you find the old sailor's hat and that kind, you know, with wreckage now.
A lot of speculation what they were going to do. They were going to block the, you know, the ferocious tide that was running there. The locals were inclined to poo-hoo it, that, you know, that you couldn't achieve that. And I think initially when they started dumping even, and particularly when they started dumping out from each end, they weren't quite sure how far they could go successfully, but when they got out so far, the tide just swept it away again.
Then the barriers was built in, and there was two high masts over on the Graham Sal side and two high masts over in Lambsholm, and there was overhead cableways, and it was dumped in off the cableways, and first there was that big a tide there. They had washed the stones away, and then they put in wire baskets to keep it from washing away, and that was the first thing that broke the tide. And once it got broken, they started to just dump the blocks. The blocks was never placed; they were just dumped in off of the I think it was the blonded was what they used to call it.
So they got underway with the block yards. They made one at St Mary's, and they made a block yard at Lambsholm, which is where you go into the chapel. That's the block yard. They set up a block yard at Grimsetta, and they built the blocks there, and they got a firm from South Aitken's off Falkirk. They came here with big lorries, and they carted the blocks from well, it was away at the Bosset Quarry. So they had a good supply of blocks, and the Italians came here in 1942, January 42.
And they were a very nice lot of prisoners. I think they were quite happy, and they were looked after very well. And of course they built that lovely chapel. And then they had, every hut had something at the end of it. I mean, you'd never know on Lavem now that there'd been all these huts. Well, they were all round the statue, you see. The statue of St George was the sort of centre bit. And then all their houses and they had all their huts, and they had a sort of a sports hut too. And of course, a lot of these men who were building the barriers, they weren't really cut out for that kind of thing at all. They were far too artistic. And that's how Keokete came to be designed. And they were supposed to have one hut as a schoolroom and one as a chapel. But they found that they'd far rather have them both together and make the chapel of them, which of course is one of the sights of Orkney now.
I was at the official opening. It was opened by A.V. Alexander, the First Lord of the Admiralty, at number 4 Barrier. And there would be Mr. Graham there for Graham's Hall too. Oh, there he is there. Mr. Graham, Mr. Nichol, A.V. Alexander. When we were there, I thought it's one of the best ideas I've seen for an official opening, because they came off the warships on the flow, and they came into St Mary's Hope Pier, came along to the end of number 4 Barrier. They cut the tape, shook hands with one or two, jumped in the cars, and away to Grimsetta, on the plane and away.